My name is Cindy, and unfortunately my story is not unique. I'm a post-abortion survivor. I use this term to help others to understand that not only does abortion kill the unborn child, it also leaves an aftermath of victims. Abortion is not a procedure that a mother and a father walk away from without painful and permanent scars. I was pro-choice from the first time I had heard about abortion. When I became pregnant in 1985, my boyfriend told me it wasn't the right time for us to have a child, and there would be plenty of time for us to have a family. I agreed without putting any thought into this decision, because it was not yet a baby. At least that is what I believed. I was barely 5 weeks and had no physical reason to know that anything was going on inside my womb. I had the abortion and instantly felt more pain, shame, and fear than I had felt my entire life. About 8 months later, I had a dream. I was holding a child in my arms, and we were lovingly gazing at each other. When I awoke, I realized I had just seen my son. As is normally the case, the father and I did not stay together. This was just the beginning of my post-abortion story and the long journey from pro-choice to pro-life. I continued to be pro-choice and believed that I was merely mourning the loss of potential motherhood. My life from this point was filled with destructive behavior. I became promiscuous and began drinking heavily, anything to help dull the pain and shame I felt. I also did what I could to prevent myself from becoming pregnant, as I felt I was unworthy of having another child. I prayed that God would let me die in an accident so I would not have to continue feeling so much pain. My shame kept me from seeking help that I needed. A couple of years later, I shared my story with a friend, and this began the process of forgiving myself. Forgiveness came, but my shame stayed with me for 23 years. After a failed marriage and drowning in complete despair, I told God I would follow wherever He led me. In the fall of 2007, I entered an RCIA class. A priest shared his vocation story with the class, and I was amazed that even priests have a sinful past. It was hearing his story and learning the story of so many of the saints that made me realize that God had forgiven me, that I was worthy of His love, and that I did not have to be ashamed anymore. I felt the desire to help those with a similar past, so I asked to meet with the priest. 2 days later, I was sharing my story at the Catholic high school. I was about to go from only 4 people knowing my greatest sin to numerous kids and teachers, some of whom I knew would recognize me from church. After sharing my story, what happened caught me by complete surprise. No one looked at me with disgust, as Satan had convinced me they would. Instead, I received admiration for my courage, sympathy for my pain, and love that lifted me higher than I thought humanly possible. I don't know if I helped any of the students that day, but God healed me. Satan no longer had me in the bondage of shame, and I knew that I would be silent no more. I will mourn my son and the lost opportunity of motherhood for the rest of my life, as I have always wanted children. I know that my son, Francis McKinley, knows that I love him and that I was blind to the truth of when life actually begins. In memory of my beloved son, I will not be silent about the truth that life begins at the moment of conception.